Now to our other top story, the search for Nancy Guthrie gaining some momentum after more than a week with no person of interest and no suspect. Today, investigators returned to Guthrie's home in Tucson, Arizona, as they continue their search for clues.
And this all comes just one day after we saw a major break in this case. The FBI obtaining surveillance video from Guthrie's front porch on the morning she disappeared. Then hours later, the news that broke that authorities had detained a man in connection with the case. However, that man is now free after a night of questioning.
I want to bring in NBC4 investigative reporter Eric Leonard. He, as you know, has been following this case from day one. Eric, so let's talk about that momentum. What does that tell you?
Well, it could mean a number of different things depending on how you look at it. On the one hand, we're seeing more activity out in the field than maybe we've seen since this case first became the subject of national attention in this enormous investigation. You could look at that as investigators have somewhere to go. They are pursuing a particular fact or piece of evidence that's believed to be out there, perhaps not knowing where it is, which is why we've seen detectives and FBI agents fanned out all over the place. On the other hand, you could also look at this as maybe this is something that they wish they had done a week ago. And now going back over ground that has already been looked at, maybe in a cursory way, now being more deliberate. There's some indication that with everything that's been learned in the last few days, they may be out there going over places that have already been visited by law enforcement, but now perhaps looking for something very specific that they didn't know to look for a week ago. That could even be some of the items that we saw in that video.
There was so much hope last night that maybe this was the person involved or someone connected as someone involved in this. Of course, that person's released today. A lot of questions. What do we know about why or how they found this person in the first place? What were they looking for?
Right. So I think we have to give, maybe grace is the wrong word, but we definitely need to remember that the main focus of the investigators' efforts right now is on a potential rescue. And so that means speed above all else as they pursue different leads. So that could mean that they have, let's say, less than solid information to go pursue something aggressively, pull this guy over, question him overnight at Phoenix or at Tucson Homicide and the Pima County Sheriff's Office there, really press for any information that this person might have, but moving with more speed necessarily than quality of information, because at this point, with so many days that have passed, their emphasis is on the possibility that Nancy Guthrie is out there somewhere and to move as quickly as possible to pursue leads. The best information we have on the questioning last night comes from this man's family, who says that he was a delivery driver and may have been in the neighborhood that is now the subject of this massive investigation. That's the connection, and clearly it looks like he was cleared very quickly.
So let's talk about where do we go from here? I mean, with this investigation, the videos, the images, I mean, this investigation is evolving.
It has. I think the release of those video clips yesterday is maybe the biggest turning point since all of this began, because it's the first tangible piece of information that is absolutely factual. Nobody's guessing at whether ransom messages that have arrived are legitimate or not. We have a human person on video at the place where a crime took place. That is the single biggest lead they've had so far, and now they're enlisting every member of the public to try to identify this person, and if not the person, identify things that are seen in this video as potential pieces of evidence in the case. I found the most interesting part of all of what happened in the last 24 hours was this man who was brought in for questioning, detained, and then released, and his family. None of them were aware that Nancy Guthrie was the subject of all of this national attention. They simply weren't following the case the way all of us have been. I think that's a strong indication that there are people out there who may know something without knowing they know it, which of course is why there's so much emphasis on getting these images out there.
I know we have to wrap quickly. Could there be more video that may be released?
Sure seems like it.
Okay.
They've made references to more cameras, but we've only seen the video from the one.
Eric Leonard, thank you so much.